BlackSky.
Greetings from Kiev. This is Dmytro Antoniuk. I am part of BlackSky team, and today this is another digest of our materials, of our articles from the last week. The first one is by Andrus Hajovy. The big deal starts with Potash. Uh, the article explains that the United States of America has lifted sanctions on Belarusian potash companies, allowing Belarus to sell fertilizers again to markets like the US, Brazil, and India. These sanctions were first introduced in 2021 because potash exports were a key source of income for the Belarusian government, actually for the regime of Lukashenko, the dictatorship. The decision comes after some improvements in relations between Belarus and the US, including diplomatic contacts and the release of political prisoners. But another article of our team says that uh, Lukashenko grabs more prisoners than he releases, actually. This makes it easier for Belarusian companies to work with international partners and use US dollars. However, the main problem is logistics. The easiest export route through through Klaipėda in Lithuania, and it is still blocked by EU sanctions. And this is unlikely to change soon. Because of this, Belarus continues to rely on Russian ports. The article also notes that Belarus is trying to attract US investment in its potash industry and may offer large projects for sale. Overall, while sanctions relief creates new opportunities, transport issues remain a key challenge. The next article is by a new member of our team, Yulia Derdyuk. It's called Russia is Ready for Peace if it gets everything. The Kremlin's territorial appetites are growing. This article looks at Russia's recent statements about possibly ending the hot phase of war. It explains that Russia says it is ready for peace only if Ukraine withdraws its troops from the Donetsk region. At the same time, other representatives of the Russian government suggest that these demands could expand to include additional territories in major cities such as Odessa, Kharkiv, and Dnipro, indicating that Russia's ambitions are not decreasing but growing. This article also points out that Russia often uses deadlines and ultimatums as a way to pressure Ukraine rather than as real steps toward peace. Toward peace. Now, Ukraine firmly rejects these demands, stating that it will not withdraw troops or recognize occupied territories as Russian, defining them instead as temporarily occupied under international law. Overall, the article shows that despite talk about peace, Russia's position has not really changed. So an agreement is unlikely for now. Another article is editorial one, and it's called Critical Dependence: Why the EU Cannot Do Without Russian Fertilizers. Again, this is broader view on the article about potash. So this is another additional information on that topic. This article explains that despite sanctions and efforts to find new suppliers, the EU still depends heavily on Russian fertilizers. In 2025, Russia provided about 23% of the EU's needs, especially in nitrogen fertilizers, which are difficult to replace. While Belarusian supplies have almost disappeared due to stricter sanctions, Russian products were never fully banned because European agriculture relies on them, especially now with this ongoing war in Iran. The article shows that the EU has tried to diversify supplies by increasing imports from countries like Morocco and Egypt and boosting its own production, but these efforts are limited. EU production depends on expensive gas, and alternative suppliers cannot quickly increase output, which keeps prices highly and supply unstable. Some countries, such as Hungary, are calling for softer policies to avoid higher food prices, but the EU prefers other ways to support farmers. And the article ends up showing that dependence on Russian fertilizers will not change quickly. And by the way, the biggest buyer of Russian fertilizers in EU countries is among EU countries is Poland, and it is also included in this article. Another piece by Yulia Derdyuk. It's about Hungary. Putin and Orban are turning Transcarpathia into a tool to influence Hungarian voters. This piece examines how Viktor Orban is using anti-Ukrainian rhetoric during his election campaign in Hungary, focusing especially on fears about war, EU financial support for Ukraine, and the situation of ethnic Hungarians in Transcarpathia, in the west of Ukraine. It argues that these topics are being used to create fear among voters and strengthen support for the ruling Fidesz party by presenting external threats as central campaign issues. The article explains that the issue of Transcarpathia and its Hungarian minority is often used in campaign messages about forced mobilization and pressure on ethnic Hungarians in Ukraine. According to experts, these narratives often match with Russian messaging, which helps increase tension between Ukraine and Hungary and makes the topic more politically useful during elections. Overall, the article suggests that the Transcarpathian issue is being used mainly as a political tool during the election campaign to influence voters rather than as a real humanitarian concern. And the last one, which is again by Yulia Derdyuk, it's about Easter ceasefire, fiction or a real opportunity for an agreement. Here, she explains a short Easter ceasefire proposed by Russia, which would last 32 hours. Putin announced a limited silence regime over the Easter period, and Ukraine said it would support the idea if Russia also stopped attacks and kept to the deal. The article also explains that both sides use energy infrastructure strikes as part of the wider war strategy, with Ukraine aiming to weaken Russia's economy and Russia continuing pressure on Ukraine's power system. Although the ceasefire is formally accepted in principle, there is strong doubt about whether it will actually hold, as fighting and strikes continued before the announcement, and trust between both sides remains very, very low. And to end up, this article suggests that the Easter ceasefire is more of a short political gesture than a real step toward a long term peace agreement. Well, Thank you for your attention. Stay tuned to our site and to our YouTube channel, BlackSky. This was Dmytro Antoniuk from Kiev. Bye bye.